left lane ahead.
Position of paying for this. President Trump is trying to end this. Praise God. I remember back in the day that was a good thing to try to end wars. Remember that? I thought that was laudable. So back in the day, Zelensky said to us, "Give us credit, and we'll pay you back the money." And then Zelensky said something else.
If you can't give us some financial support, okay, please give us a credit, and we will give you back money.
Okay, so it was a loan. Then Zelensky said,
Знаю, що у нас було 100. І це факт. Я не збираюся знімати 500. Хто б що не говорив, як би ми не
it's a
спілкувалися.
loan. It's a fact. It's a loan. Well, which one was it? Now, this isn't getting a lot of notice, but President Trump has said to Zelensky, "We've given you way too much money. We want 50% of your oil and mineral revenues until we're paid back." Praise God again for this. I honestly have no interest in taking food out of the mouths of poor Ukrainians, but that's not exactly what I'm seeing our money do. I am seeing our money disappear into a hole that's inauditable. And I've watched Democrats and Republicans alike say it's a Putin talking point to audit our money we give to Ukraine. It's not a Putin talking point. Putin would love it if we bankrupted ourselves. He'd love it if we didn't audit a dime of any of our money. But of course we need to do this audit, and President Trump should get credit for Zelensky coming back and saying, "Okay, I'll pay you back for the money that America has spent on my country." There's progress. That's progress. It's progress that Zelensky says he will step down if it brings peace to his country. Because, of course, he's refused to have elections. And meanwhile, our press is talking about the unprecedented nature of everything President Trump does. It was not unprecedented for a president to cause a dictator to change his mind. But it's unprecedented that it's treated as a bad thing that President Trump wants this war to end. On this program, we thank the Lord for placing supposedly wise people on tall towers of shaking sand with our feature called the Tower of Babel.
Do you know about the biblical truth of the Tower of Babel? A Disciples View presents
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word.
The Tower of Babylon.
3 sound bites in today's Tower of Babylon. Almost always 3, although coming up we're going to do 4. So an Atlanta pastor is a mega pastor. I don't like that phrase. I don't think he's a mega pastor. He's and we got this just so that we can continue to see the way the black church is being attacked. This is a pastor, Jamal Bryant, and listen to how he refers to black people who support President Trump.
I feel bad for them coons in the White House who are in there tap dancing for massa, wearing bow ties, shinning and grinding, laughing like nothing is funny. I ain't afraid of the spooks that sat at the door. These runaway slaves hiding in the White House gonna throw my picture up thinking that I'm gonna be afraid.
As a white man, I am not going to repeat, because you heard it yourself, the first slur that he tossed at black people who disagree with him ideologically. Runaway slaves? That's an interesting phrase. So you have a Democrat Party that way back in the day had a President, Johnson, use a vile phrase for black people. And he said, continue, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't want to use the phrase, "He'll continue this public assistance and I'll have those blank words eaten out of my hand." There was a time in this country where the black ascendancy was even more profound than it has been across the spiritual. There was a spike. And part of that was in the 1950s. And there's a book called Please Stop Helping Us by Jason Riley. And I think you know who he is, former New York Times editor, probably opinion writer. And Jason Riley points out with data-rich stories how Black ascendancy in entrepreneurship was just rising, and Blacks graduating college is just rising until affirmative action came into place. And public assistance and welfare was pushed on the Black family. And funny thing, weird thing, when fathers moved out of homes, all those trends reversed. And yet this pastor calls people names like that for supporting a different ideology. Pretty amazing. Next soundbite in today's Tower Babbling. This is Sunny Hostin, also, by the way, a woman of color.
It angers me when people are like, this woke stuff's gotta go. That's telling me that you don't care about my lived experience. You don't care about the oppression of the LGBTQ community. You don't care about the oppression of the disabled. You don't care about the oppression of immigrants. You don't care about your fellow neighbor. And that is ungodly. That is not Christian.
Yeah, no, that's not at all what we're saying. In opposing wokeism, and wokeism means that white people are always wrong, that America is always wrong, that the only way to cure any of this is to forcibly make people agree that they're racists and horrible people who've oppressed people, though they've never done any such thing, and then to forcibly take money from people who never were slaves and give it to money, or who never held slaves and give it to people who never were slaves. That's what woke means. That's what DEI means. That we need to make racism better by using racism. So none of that means we don't care. We simply don't think that you can make things better by making things worse. But you be you, we'll be us, Sunny Hostin. Last soundbite today's Tower Babbling, longer than would normally appear in the Tower Babbling, but the lady was fired. So I want to give her the respect of having been fired. She should get more time on the show. This is Joy Reid, post-firing from MSNBC.
My show had value, and that, I'm sorry, that what I was doing had value. And in the end, I'm sorry, I try not to cry on TV. And I think this is kind of like me on TV, so I apologize.
Yeah, and that's part of the babbling. Here's the rest of the babbling. This is the same Joy Reid.
In America, there's a thing about both white vigilantism and white tears, particularly male white tears. Really white tears in general, because that's what Karens are, right? They Karen out, and then as soon as they get caught, bring waterworks. White men can get away with that too. And it has the same effect. Even as the right tries to politicize the idea that masculinity is being robbed from American men by multiculturalism and wokeism.
Her show, she says, had value. And she mocks what she calls white tears.
And that it mattered. I see Karen is there, and she's been texting me as well.
And so she has a friend named Karen. Back and forth between the clips. Black people's tears matter. White people's tears matter. White lives matter. Black lives matter. Lives matter. Jesus said so. But for Joy Reid to ignore the fact that her ratings were tanking, and part of that was because she had become so openly racist, well, that means Joy Reid actually can't heal or learn from this experience. And I do pray that Joy Reid will learn from this experience, because being fired is horrible. Awful feeling. And that's a wrap for today's Tower Babbling.
That was the Tower of Babbling.
Whoa! That is news.
On A Disciple's View.
What's the most valuable piece of advice you got that you never expected to get? On a personal note today, I'm going to tell you about a couple pieces of advice I got that I never expected to get that turned out to be so utterly valuable. One's pretty simple. One is pretty simple. And it had to do with walking into church for the first time, the big church I'm in now. And someone said, don't try it once. Make sure you try it 3 times. And the advice was this. The first time, you're going to be nervous because you're a new person. Even though you're someone who's fairly okay around folks and you don't have a lot of social anxiety, you're going to be nervous because you're human. And so part of your response into that is going to be about the nerves. The second time, you're not going to be nervous. You're going to know what the service is like, what it smells like. You're going to know what the people are like in a general sense. You're going to have a place you sit because you're going to sit in the same place because that's human nature. At that point, you're going to be thinking about the church cognitively. You're going to be experiencing it intellectually. That's who you are. On the third time, you're going to be open to feeling. So you go 3 times. He was right. First time I went to my church, the one I'm now a member at, I've been at for almost 5 years, I hated it. It was too big, it was too loud, and too many people. Second time I went, I hated it for a different reason. It was just static. It was not static, it was kind of stale. Like, man, I'm not learning a bunch. The third time I went, I felt. Because our senior pastor stood on stage and told a story about how messed up his kid Christian was. God has rescued Christian. He's a pastor in his own right. He is a gifted pastor, but he's much more of a minister. He is the pastor you call at 3 o'clock in the morning. And he is the guy who gets out of bed every time. And on that time when I heard Jim talk about how screwed up his family got and what a mess he was, I thought, I feel this. My friend was right. It was a piece of advice that was so solid. Another came from a secular source. And this guy to this day doesn't know the Lord Jesus. Brilliant man, very successful in Silicon Valley. And I'd taken a meeting with him because I was trying to figure out what next to do at Microsoft. I was a guy who wanted another challenge and another big mountain to climb, and I was an egotistical jerk. Unbelievably ungrateful, egotistical jerk. So I went into this guy's office and I took this meeting, and he said to me this, look, everyone here gets it. Like, you're smart. You're super smart. Everybody gets that. You're super driven. Everybody gets that. You're willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done. Everybody gets that. And I got to tell you, you know what I have a real concern with is you care so much more about that which you know versus that which you don't know. That was one of the most profound things I've ever heard from a man. And I actually started to get up. He said he didn't say it calmly. He didn't say it in an emotional sense, but he used a different phrase. Like, did I anger you? Did I blank? Did I anger you? No. No, that's just that wisdom you just gave me. That's why I came. You're right. You're absolutely right. That's been a mistake of mine. I want that to change today. There was that piece of advice. The other was this. And this is one of the most profound pieces of advice I've ever gotten. I was talking about some challenges that my wife and I had in our marriage, significant challenges. And I was talking about the obligation of marriage and to stay obligated and to stay in the marriage, and that we're expected to do this even when it's hard, even when forgiveness is hard. And as I was making this statement and talking to an older Christian friend, more mature in the faith than me, as I said all these things, he said to me, have you ever once asked God what you're to learn from this? I prayed about it for it to be better, for me to be better. He said, yeah, but have you ever said to God, what am I to learn? God's teaching you something. Maybe he'll reveal to you what he's trying to have you learn. And so I began that prayer. And what God revealed to me was this. I need you to know wholeheartedly, it's my purpose. I'm not going to reveal it to you yet. But it's my purpose, and that needs to be enough for you. That it's my purpose. That was the lesson. To so trust his purposes to even walk through pain. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Because we believe, we speak. Because he first loved us, we speak his word. We walk in the path of Jesus Christ to make disciples of all nations until God gives us permission to speak again together. May his peace wash over you. On behalf of Randy and AFR, I'm Todd Herman. This is Ben at Disciples Field.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
90.5 KTXG, Greenville, Dallas.
Speak, what would he say? The Bible subjects itself to historical verification.
He says, we saw this. We go to the Bible wanting to hear what the living God has to say to us.
When God speaks, what does he say?
The God who speaks. Visit stream.afa.net. This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
For American Family News, I'm Chris Woodward. There were fireworks at the White House today after the president of Ukraine showed up for talks with President Donald Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance on bringing an end to Ukraine's war with Russia.
You have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what
you're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
Feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about
it. From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country, that's back to you, far more than a lot of people said they should have.
For more on this developing story, visit our website, afn.net. Anti-Israel protests started up again at one college this week. Here's AFN's Bronson Woodruff.
Protesters allegedly assaulted an employee when they took over a building on the campus of Barnard College in New York City. This happened on Wednesday evening. Student Elisha Baker, also called Lishi, is in his junior year at Columbia University. He was at the Barnard protest confronting protesters and is seen on video being blocked access into the building.
I don't understand. Why not? Why do we go away? Tell me to go away. Tell them to go away. Why do I have to go away, but they can't go away?
Baker went on Fox to share what happened.
I mean, this is nothing new. These are students who cosplay as the terrorists that they support. They have no regard for the rules.
He explained his friend, also seen in the videos, tried to get into the building because he had an accounting class inside. More video shows masks people outside the building handing bags up into the window to protesters.
A group of students that showed up with grocery bags and meals for the protesters that essentially locked themselves in that building.
The protest ended the same night it started.
Barnard gave them a document that said, if you leave by 10:30 p.m., we will not issue any disciplinary rulings against you for being inside the building. So essentially, at 10:45, they marched out and did a victory march.
Wow.
Because they